After the battle, what happened to the dead, the weapons, and the spoils? When the clash of steel finally faded and the shouting of thousands gave way to silence, the battlefield became a grim sight. Where moments before men had fought for their lives, now thousands of bodies lay scattered across the ground. Crows and vultures circled above, and the silence was broken only by the cries of the wounded and the anguished neighs of injured horses. Armor lay shattered, banners torn, shields splintered, and swords abandoned where their owners had fallen. Victory did not end with the enemy's defeat. In many ways, the hardest work was still to come. Soldiers rushed to search for the wounded, dragging them from the heaps of corpses as quickly as possible. Minutes could mean the difference between life and death, and every man saved meant not only a life preserved, but also experience the army could not afford to lose. Those who could still walk were treated on the spot, while others were lifted onto stretchers or wagons and carried to field hospitals. There, doctors did what they could with the tools at their disposal. For the badly wounded, recovery could take weeks or months, if it came at all. At the same time, officers began their solemn task of accounting for the dead. Names were called, and silence answered for the fallen. Their bodies were gathered with care, for this was not merely a duty, but an act of piety. Roman commanders believed that abandoning the dead would not only dishonor them, but also unsettle the living, who feared the same neglect if they too were slain. The Romans understood the dangers of disease from decaying corpses, so burials were often swift. Soldiers were laid in mass graves or burned upon great pyres. Yet even in such haste, comrades sought to give a proper farewell. Each soldier contributed a small share of his pay towards a burial fund, ensuring that even if his body was lost, a gravestone could be raised in his name. Thousands of such stones still survive, telling us not only the ranks and careers of these men, but sometimes of their families and origins. One stone found in the German camp of Castra Vetera commemorates Marcus Caelius, a 53-year-old centurion of the 18th Legion who perished in the Teutoburg forest. Years later, the general Germanicus saw to the burial of those who had died there, and thus Caelius received the honor denied to so many of his comrades. High-ranking officers and great heroes of battle could expect special ceremonies. After the Battle of Pharsalus, Caesar himself ordered a tomb to be built for the centurion Gaius Crestinus, who had led a decisive charge and died in the fighting. The Emperor Trajan even erected a memorial at Adamclisi, upon which the names of 4,000 fallen were carved, a rare distinction in Roman history. The fate of enemies was more varied. Common foes might be finished off where they lay, or taken prisoner to be sold into slavery. Those of noble birth, however, could be worth ransoms or serve as pawns in political games. Scipio Africanus once released Massiva, nephew of the Numidian king Massinissa, to win an ally. Yet most prisoners were not so fortunate, their lives ending in slavery or humiliation in the triumphs of Rome. Once the wounded and dead had been dealt with, another great task began. Armorers and craftsmen roamed the battlefield, stripping the fallen of shields, swords, and helmets, repairing what could be salvaged, and gathering enemy equipment for reuse. After the disaster of Cannae, Rome was so desperate for arms that even old trophies from temples were taken down and issued to fresh recruits. Not everything could be recovered. Arrowheads, sling bullets, and the stones of artillery were left where they fell, too small or too damaged to be worth the effort. These, more than anything else, are what archaeologists uncover today, while intact swords or helmets remain rare treasures. The most delicate matter, however, was the spoils of war. In theory, all plunder belonged to the general, to be counted and redistributed fairly. Soldiers were supposed to hand everything over, and later they would be rewarded with money. In practice, temptation was strong. A cloak, a pair of boots, a bronze cup, or a silver trinket could easily be hidden away. Some men stumbled upon saddles, rich furniture, or other luxury goods that were worth more than months of pay. Smuggling such things past officers was risky, but many tried. Disputes often arose over loot. Polybius tells of Roman soldiers grumbling after the Battle of Cynoscephalae, when the Aetolians had raided the enemy camp before them and carried off what the Romans thought was their rightful prize. Occasionally, to maintain morale, a commander allowed his men to keep what they found. But such indulgence was rare. It risked breeding resentment between those who had abandoned their posts to plunder and those who had remained loyal to their duties of guarding, healing, or burying the fallen. Oh, who? Thus, when the clash of armies ended, the field of battle did not fall into quiet rest. It became a place of urgent labor, of surgeons and gravediggers, of smiths and scavengers, of mourners and opportunists. Victory was never measured by the slain alone, but by how well an army endured the grim business that followed. And so, the end of a battle was never the end of the story. It was the beginning of another struggle, for life, for memory, for honor, and for the spoils left behind. What do you think? Should we see the Romans as respectful caretakers of the fallen, or as ruthless pragmatists making the most of death? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this video interesting, don't forget to give it a like and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps bring more history back to life.